guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and typically I do a few car reviews and 0 to 60 type videos every week, things that I find cool or relevant and that I want to share with you guys. Today we actually have something really special. This is a 2011 Toyota FJ Cruiser. I borrowed it from Twin Falls Subaru in Southern Idaho. I'll link it below. They're great people. And I'm going to review it for you. But something I want to mention is when I was in college getting my bachelor's degree and going through therapy school, I had a 2007 Toyota FJ Cruiser. The first year that they made these, mine had body armor. It looked similar to this, and it had the TRD supercharger. So this is a pretty sentimental vehicle for me. Let's get right into the review. This one is obviously the green color, and these were assembled in Japan. They actually span between production years of 06 to 2022. They disappeared in the United States in 2014, but they were made in the Middle East up until last year, which is pretty outstanding. You might think I'm making that up, but think about the current gen 4Runner that's been out since around 09, 2010, that era. And it's still being produced even in 2023. That's basically what this is, an old platform, but if it's not broken, don't fix it. Maybe throw some new tech at it. But it's basically a similar platform to this. It's unfortunate that we don't see more of these on the road, but timing was not in its favor. When production started in 2006, that first year in 07, they actually sold about 55,000 of these in the United States. And then the recession hit, gas got expensive, people lost their jobs, and housing was more of the concern than having an off-road toy. So they only sold about 28,000 of these in 2008. And then the following years, sales numbers actually dipped down between 11,000 and 14,000, which is very low production. You think of a 4Runner or something like that that sells well over 100,000 every single year pretty consistently. But the suicide door, basically two-door off-road SUV, it was neglected and forgotten about, almost, unless you're an enthusiast. The 19-gallon gas tank is located right there on the driver's side. Depending on two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive configuration, these were rated for up to 17 city, 21 highway. So if you were really doing well, you might be able to hit 400 miles on a tank. Realistically though, the way that this one's configured, I think if you can get 13 per gallon or maybe up to 300 miles on a tank, you're going to be doing pretty well. I know that's about all that mine could do, looking pretty similar to this one, especially when these were either a 6-speed manual or a 5-speed automatic. I'll show you under the hood soon to see that 4-liter engine as well as the horsepower and torque configurations, but it's a bulletproof powertrain, and it's basically the same powertrain that you'll find in the current gen 4Runner, the 4-liter. Bone stock, these weigh between 4,000 and 4,400 pounds depending on the configuration, just over 15 feet long, just over 6 feet wide, and stock it would be about 6 feet tall with 8.7 inches to 9.6 inches of ground clearance, because the four-wheel drive versions were about an inch taller than the two-wheel drive configuration. These are counted as a mid-size 5-door SUV that has suicide doors and is a body-on-frame SUV. The way this one is configured, similar to mine, it had the rear locker, which is a phenomenal option, especially in the mid to late early 2000s. Most other brands these days that have a rear locker, some of them do have a front locker as well, but that's like the ZR2 category of Colorado and Silverado or the Broncos, things that you're going to be paying a whole lot of money for. Speaking of, these have apparently only been going up in value after their big dip a long time ago. When I sold mine, probably about 6 years ago, I got pennies for it compared to what I think it's worth if it was being sold today. And would I buy it back in a heartbeat for the same price or even a little bit more? Absolutely. But if you want one in today's time, 2023, when off-road vehicles are becoming exceptionally popular and there's markups on all the new crazy off-road stuff, you're probably going to be paying a little bit for one of these. Good thing money isn't worth as much as it was, you know, 5-10 years ago when a dollar was worth $1. So I guess that's a good trade-off, right? Comment below, tell me what you think about that. Anyways, the wheelbase is just under 9 feet, so it takes about 41 feet for this thing to do a full circle. So that's probably pretty average in its class. It's not as crazy as some of the full-size trucks, but those bigger tires do take away a little bit from that potentially. Stock, this would have a 265/70/17, but the way it sits with those Goodyear Wranglers, it's actually 285/75/16. And you guys have waited long enough. Let's get out of the wind and show you what else it has to offer. The door panel has a lot of black plastics. They have aged really well, but they're kind of like a soft but firm plastic. I do like that the paint color follows. Mine was silver, as you saw, so it had the silver inlay. The handle's nice, the speaker's right there. Small door pocket for how big the door is and what they could fit. We want more stuff. Give us a bigger pocket, Toyota. What are you thinking? 2 windows, locks, and those big mirrors. Nothing really on the door sill. It does have the running board. You have all-weather mats. You can take them out. And then down here, rubberized pedals. You have the fuses. The mirror controls are actually on the left, as well as the lighting stock and the steering adjustment. You have ventilation, A-pillar handle, and secret storage up top. These are seat covers, steering wheel covers, so it's not red leather from the factory. And no sunroof on this one, but you do have a handle up here. And when we hop inside, there's a lot of sun visors. 1 on the front, 1 on the side, and 2 for your passenger. You even have auto dimming mirrors on this one, which is pretty cool. But let's fire it up. Fires right up. The 4-liter sounds pretty good, pretty darn healthy. These things have been known to work for a long time, and they don't have a lot of moving parts in the engine, so they are very reliable. Steering wheel cover, you know, it's been changed for this model. The horn sounds decent. A little bit on the high pitch side though, if you ask me. You have volume controls and mode on the left and audio voice controls on the right. Otherwise, pretty straightforward, simple gauges, and I actually really like how they look. But that gas gauge, it kind of dips down pretty quick, but you gotta just know what you're getting yourself in for. We have the compass, thermometer, and inclinometer right there. We have the clock right there, and then the old school screen has been replaced for this fancy new one that has all sorts of plugins, so you could probably play your Xbox, your PS4, or whatever else you want to do from here. You can see the off-road options and lighting upgrades it has, as well as the 12-volt and USB. Old school on the floor, going around for 4 high, then to neutral, to get into 4 low if you want. Shifter works really well, and then all the low gears. Old school e-brake, spot for your coins, couple cup holders, and some extra storage down there. Maybe if you had some CDs on that side and some snacks in front. But let's hop in the back and sit behind yourself, see how we feel. And because it's a suicide door, you have to reach back to find the handle. You can then see where your driver's seatbelt comes from. You have a bottle holder and a little bit of extra storage right there. If you want to drop the 60-40 split, it's really easy to do. You just pull the tab and then the button that's next to the headrest. It drops the seat, but it does not drop flat. You can see it inclines, it ascends up to the driver, but then it's easy to put back. If you want to hop back here, you do have the running board. Nothing on the door sill other than maybe a little bit of grip, rubberized matting, but you don't have a handle or anything to grab back here. So you might have to be kind and ask the driver if you can use their roof mounted grab handle. But sitting behind myself at 5'11", I have probably about an inch of room in front of my knees. So I could be back here for a while. I probably wouldn't want to go across the country like this, but it would be okay. I have a map pocket, so I can be a backseat driver. Or if I'm waiting for the driver to return to his seat, I can enjoy some nice fresh air through this large opening, or get some cross breeze through the other side. But you're not going to have your own cup holder because there is nothing to fold down in the center. You might be able to fit something up here if they're going to share their console, but otherwise you're kind of missing out a little bit. Thankfully, these seat covers on the seats are actually very comfortable. But let's escape out the way we came, close it up, and see what that swing door looks like and how much cargo capacity you have. While we're back here, if you have the tow package like this one, they are rated to tow up to about 5,000 pounds. So you could essentially pull an FJ behind an FJ. Otherwise, to open the swing gate, there's a handle just hidden above and behind the license plate. It opens up. You can also, with the struts, pop over in the window, maybe hide your keys. You know, if you have the mesh insert that you can get for these, you could hide your keys, have the window closed but not locked. Just an idea, something I used to do when I had mine. Anyways, back here you have about 28 cubic feet of room, so it's adequate for this class. For being only about 15.25 feet long, it's not too bad. If you drop the seats, you actually get about 67 cubic feet. We have the JBL subwoofer, a little bit of extra storage if we drop that for some tools, and just a little bit of extra room above the wheel wells. Nothing too crazy back here. Spare tire is not down here because it's on the swing gate, but I want to show you guys the suspension. It is aftermarket, a slight lift to go with those bigger diameter wheels. If you're riding passenger, you have a lot of the same amenities as the driver. The door panel is basically identical. Nothing on the door sill. You have manual controls, all-weather mats. You have a glove box that's non-locking and is adequately sized for this class. And then the same entryway for the back seat, but you can see if our backpack is held in place, or if you have a passenger, you're actually gonna have to take off your seatbelt to access the back seat. Otherwise, that is just the 60 split, and it works identical to the driver's side. But I know what you guys have been waiting for. Let's see under the hood of this monstrosity and see what it looks like. So we're gonna pop the hood. Under the hood, we have a bone stock 4-liter. So in the early year FJ Cruisers, these made about 239 horsepower and about 278 foot-pound-feet of torque. And then after a couple years of production, it got ramped up to about 260, where this one sits, same as the 4Runners, and about 271 pound-feet of torque. Mine, being an 07 with the supercharger, actually was boosted, no pun intended, to 304 horse, 334 torque, and you could always do a smaller pulley, add more power that way. But it's a really good, very bulletproof engine. We of course have an aftermarket Ford battery, so I guess it is trying to be like the Bronco in today's time. But otherwise, you have the engine cover, the air filter, the intake baffling, and then everything's right in front. You can easily access the serpentine belt. The water pump is right there. The valve covers on the big heads with the overhead cam design of this engine, the dipstick, all the reservoirs up top, brake fluid back there. It's a really good layout. And you're probably not gonna ever have to work on it because these are so dang reliable. Let's drop the hood. Time for what might be my favorite part. We're gonna take it on the road and see how it drives, and then we're gonna do that 0 to 60 with the GPS. Initial driving impressions are that it is so sweet to be back behind the wheel of an FJ Cruiser. Visibility, that's not fantastic, but is it good enough? Heck yeah. You can see what's going on. You actually have a lot of space behind the driver and passenger. The back seats are pretty comfortable. Those side mirrors are large. They show you what's going on because that B-pillar is ginormous. You feel like you're in a little tank, especially when it's lifted like this. You have some body armor and aftermarket lighting. The windshield has 3 wiper blades, which is pretty cool. But because it's so flat and upright, you do have to watch out for getting rocks and chips. I had a giant rock chip right before I sold mine. In retrospect, I shouldn't have sold it. I wish I discovered how enjoyable the Miata was earlier, and I would have gone that as my economy car when I was driving almost 1,000 miles a week doing therapy between towns. And I should have kept the FJ Cruiser because mine had body armor. It had the TRD supercharger. It got about 15 mpg though, and that just wasn't cutting it at the time. I think the FJ Cruiser came out about 10 years before it should have, because off-road vehicles and equipment have skyrocketed. As we know, these did not sell very well after the recession hit, and people who could afford them were probably getting their G-Wagons and their other high-dollar SUVs anyways, and maybe the FJ wasn't on their list. But just driving it, it feels fantastic. It's kind of cool having those extra mirrors, side visors, whatever they are. You enjoy them. They're going to help with the light because the windows are kind of interesting, but where this one is tinted well, it does a good job keeping the light out. The armrest, I feel like, is kind of low to actually use, but it's kind of soft, hard-ish plastic. So basically, it's utilitarian. It's not going to age poorly. As you can see, this model's over 10 years old and it looks brand new. Having 60,000 miles, it does exceptionally well. The 4-liter sounds really strong, but it is missing that supercharger one. You can always add that on after the fact if you want. There were even other aftermarket superchargers like Underdog Racing Development as a knockoff from TRD and things like that. But it's really good. There's a lot of interesting features with this. I love the goniometer, the compass, thermometer. Having the storage up top is really nice, whatever you want to hide up there. It just feels really cool. The armrest is decent, and it does fold out of the way and back down again. You have an okay amount of storage, a few big cup holders, so it does a good job. And this is a serious off-road vehicle with the 8-track and the rear diff lock. You can really do quite a few things with it. You do look down on a lot of other vehicles when you're sitting in the FJ. It's about the same height how it sits as a full-size diesel truck right there. Power delivery around town is reasonable, as you'll see on the 0 to 60. It actually is a little bit faster than I anticipated, the way this one sits. And man, do I wish I could have seen what mine did with that supercharger. But that was a few years ago that I sold it, and a few vehicles ago. Ride comfort is decent, you know, 6 feet wide, 6 feet tall. Basically, you catch a lot of wind, but there's not a lot of wind and road noise for having these big tires and how high it sits. Can see there's another little FJ over there with some fender flares, but if you're gonna get fender flares, come on, you gotta widen the wheels. Otherwise, it just looks top heavy. They can cruise down the road really nicely with a 19-gallon tank. You know, if you're stock on stock wheels, you know, you might be able to get almost 400 miles of range, but when you're lifted like this, you're probably gonna be lucky to get 300. Sitting in it, it's very comfortable. The speaker system is decent. This, of course, has some aftermarket adjustments made, but I like it. It honestly is such a nostalgic feeling to be back behind the wheel of an FJ Cruiser, and you can even watch other FJ Cruisers while you're riding in one. But let's get to our private road, to our 0 to 60. 0 to 60, density altitude is about 3,700 feet right now, so this vehicle is down on power over 12%. We're gonna brake rev it. Traction control is now off, and we're gonna see what it can do. I'll verbalize the true 0 to 60. Remember, it is on big, oversized off-road tires. And then I'll post a GPS graph right after, so you can see what it did without the foot of rollout, the way it would have been rated by the magazine if they did the exact same run on today's windy road. Let's see what it can do. A little bit of wheel spin. And true 0 to 60 came in at a whopping 9.75 seconds. That's honestly quite a bit better than I expected it to do. Might not be quite as fast as some of those Ford Broncos I've tested, but you're gonna be having a lot of fun in the FJ. Let's get to our final thoughts. Final thoughts, and I'll keep it short because the wind has picked up. This is a very impressive suicide door wielding mid-sized SUV. They're really impressive. I honestly really miss mine after driving this one, after spending a few hours with it. They are seriously so cool. There's a lot of characteristics and features that just make this unlike any other off-road SUV. Toyota really did a good job when they were making these. If you can justify the price tag for a vehicle that is not brand new, it might be worth it, especially when the alternative is quite pricey, potentially marked up new vehicles by other brands, and they may or may not be as reliable as one of these ancient off-road monstrosities. What are your guys' thoughts? Comment below. Have you owned one? Are you considering it? I definitely think you should take one for a drive. They're just fun, and you feel special when you're behind the wheel of one, especially one that's modified like this. If you like my style, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to show your support. If you want this one, I'll link it below. They're great people to work with at the Twin Falls Subaru, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.